Here is your Among the Hidden, the rest of chapter 14, and a page into 15. Where I left off, Luke has just gotten to the Sports family's house and busted through the screen door and slid inside the house. Even with the blinds blocking every window, the room he entered was airy and bright. From the freshly painted walls to the sparkling glass tables to the polished wood floor, everything looked new. Luke stared. Almost all the furniture in his own house had been around as long as he could remember, and whatever patterns and designs it originally carried had long ago been worn away. At his house, even the once orangish couch and the once greenish chairs were now all a matching sort of brownish gray. This room was different. It reminded him of a word he'd never heard, only read. Pristine. Nobody had ever stepped on these white rugs with manure-covered boots. Nobody had ever sat on those pale blue couches with corn dust-covered jeans. Luke might have stood by the door forever in awe, but someone coughed in another room. Then he heard a strange beep. He tiptoed forward. Better to discover than to be discovered. He went down a long hallway. The beeps had turned into a drawn-out buzz coming from a room at the end. Holding his breath, Luke stopped outside the door to that room and gathered the nerve to peek in. His heart pounded. There was still time to escape unseen, to go back to his house and attic in normal, safe life, but he'd always wonder. Luke leaned forward slowly, moving a fraction of an inch at a time until he could just barely see around the door. Inside the room was a chair and a desk and a big apparatus that Luke vaguely recognized as a computer. And at the computer, typing away furiously, sat a girl. Luke blinked, thrown off. Somehow he'd never thought about the Sports family's third child being a girl. She was mostly facing away from Luke, and she wore jeans and a gray sweatshirt, not much different from what the Sports family brothers always wore. Her dark hair was almost as short as Luke's, but there was something about the curve of her cheek, the tilt of her head, the way her sweatshirt clung or didn't cling to her body. All of that made Luke certain she wasn't like him. He blushed, then he gulped. The girl turned her head. Luke croaked. Before he had a chance to think of another word, the girl was across the room and had knocked him down. Then she pinned him to the floor, his arms twisted behind his back, his face buried in the carpet. Luke struggled to turn his head to breathe, so the girl hissed in his ear. You think you could sneak up on a poor, innocent, unsuspecting girl who's home all alone? Guess nobody told you about our alarm system. A call went out to our security guards the minute you stepped on our property. They'll be here any second. Luke panicked. So this was how he would die. He had to explain. He had to escape. No, he said, they can't come. Oh, yeah? The girl said. Who are you to stop them? Luke raised his head as much as he could. He said the first words that came into his mind. Population police. The girl let go. Chapter 15. Luke sat up, checking his arms to make sure she hadn't broken anything. You're lying, the girl said. But she made no effort to tackle him again. She crouched, looking puzzled for a few moments, then she grinned. I got it. You're another one. Great code word. I'll have to think about using that for the rally. Now it was Luke's turn to squint in confusion. The girl giggled. I mean, you're another shadow child, right? Shadow? Luke wondered why his brain seemed to be slowing down. Was it just because she seemed several miles ahead of him? That's not the term you use? She asked. I thought shadow child was universal. But you know, an illegal, someone whose parents broke population law 3903, a third. Luke couldn't bring himself to confess. He'd broken so many taboos today, leaving the house, standing in the open yard, talking to a stranger. Why did one more violation matter? You can say it, the girl coaxed. I'm a third child. Why should there be anything wrong with that? Luke was spared having to answer her because she suddenly sprang to her feet, exclaiming, Oh no, the alarm! She raced down the hall and around the corner. Luke followed to find her jerking open a closet door, then punching buttons on a panel of colored lights. Too late! Drat! She ran to a phone, Luke following breathlessly. She dialed. Luke watched in amazement. He'd never talked on a phone. His parents had told him the government could trace calls, could tell if a voice on a phone was from a person who was allowed to exist or not. Dad, she made a face. I know. Call the security company and get them to cancel the alarm, okay? Pause. And might I remind you that the penalty for harboring a shadow child is $5 million or execution, depending on the mood of the judge? She rolled her eyes at Luke while she listened to what seemed to be a long answer. Oh, these things happen. Another pause. Yeah, I love you too. Thanks, Dad. She hung up. Luke wondered if he should run back to his house immediately before the population police really did show up. And that's where I'm going to stop right there. I've put a note on Google Classroom that says, today we started in on a test, and I'm going to have you guys take it tomorrow if you missed school today. So I'm going to move your test to tomorrow. And you can work on Waggle for homework. You can read your leveled reader. And you can study for your spelling test tomorrow. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you at 12:50, Melina, if you can get on then. And then Ember, I'll plan to see you at 1. Have a good day.